response. Making beer at home involves several steps and requires some basic equipment. Here's a simplified version of the brewing process. 1. Gather your ingredients. You will need malted barley or malt extract, hops, yeast, water, and optional ingredients like sugar or fruit for flavor. 2. Mash. Soak the malted barley in hot water, around 152°F/67°C, to activate the enzymes that convert starches into fermentable sugars. This process is called mashing. 3. Sparge. After the mash, you'll need to rinse the grains with hot water to extract as much sugar as possible. This step is called sparging. 4. Boil. Bring your unfermented beer to a boil and add hops at various stages for flavor, aroma, and bitterness. The length and timing of the boil depend on the recipe. 5. Cool and ferment. Cool down the wort quickly to around 70°F, 21°C before transferring it to a fermentation vessel. Add yeast to the cooled wort, which will consume the sugars and produce alcohol and carbon dioxide. 6. Age. Allow the beer to age for about 2 weeks or more to allow the flavors to develop fully. 7. Bottle or keg. Once fermentation is complete, transfer the beer to a bottling bucket or keg and add sugar or priming solution for carbonation. For bottled beer, let it condition in bottles at room temperature for 2 weeks before enjoying. Remember, brewing beer at home requires some initial investment in equipment like a pot for boiling, fermenters, sanitizers, and bottles or a keg. Always follow local laws regarding home brewing. Happy brewing!
The image features a large, colorful insect with elongated mandibles, which appears to be a hornet or a similar species of bee. It is standing on the bark of a tree trunk. The insect has a dark, almost black body with vibrant orange and yellow markings. The head and antennae of the insect are yellow with brown stripes. In the background, there is another smaller insect, possibly another member of the same species or a different type of bee or wasp. It's resting on the ground near the tree trunk, facing away from the camera. In the image, there is a still life arrangement on a surface with a dark background that creates a contrast. On the left side of the image, there's a golden colored beer mug placed in front of some wheat sheaves tied together with a string, suggesting a connection to farming or agriculture. The mug has a handle on one side and appears to be filled with beer foam at the top, indicating it is freshly poured. In the background, there's an old-fashioned tool with a wooden handle and metal parts, which could be a plow or similar equipment used in farming. The wheat sheaves are tied together with twine, and there are 2 small green leaves attached to the top of the sheaves, possibly for decorative purposes. The overall style of the image is realistic with an emphasis on traditional or rustic elements related to beer, farming, and harvest-themed imagery. The lighting suggests it could be a professional photograph taken in a studio setting designed to evoke a sense of nostalgia or history associated with these items. There are no texts visible in the image. The image displays a still life setup on a table. On the left, there's a frosted glass bottle with a label that appears to be a beer or cider bottle. Next to it is an open packet of hops, which are the dried flowers used in brewing. In the center, a small pile of golden grains resembling barley or malted grain, commonly associated with beer production. On the right side of the image, a silver spoon rests on the tabletop. The spoon is not in focus and seems to be placed casually. The background of the image has a brown wooden texture which gives the impression that the surface is made of wood or wood-like material. There's also a faint outline of what appears to be a beer bottle in the background, but it's too far away to make out any specific details. The overall composition suggests a theme related to brewing or distillation, possibly indicating the presence of alcoholic beverages.
Response: sound is a form of energy created by the vibration of an object or substance. It is a type of wave that travels through various media, such as air or water, and is perceived as noise or music by humans and other animals. Sound waves are longitudinal waves, meaning that the particles of the medium vibrate in the same direction as the wave's propagation. Sound has several characteristics. 1. Frequency: the number of sound waves that pass a given point per second is called the frequency. Frequencies are measured in hertz, which represents 1 cycle per second. 2. Amplitude: the loudness or intensity of a sound is determined by its amplitude. A larger amplitude means a louder sound. 3. Wavelength: the distance between two consecutive points on the same phase of a wave is called the wavelength. It relates to the frequency through the equation wavelength equals speed of sound / frequency. 4. Pitch: the perceived highness or lowness of a sound is described as its pitch. Higher frequency sounds have a higher pitch, while lower frequency sounds have a lower pitch. 5. Timbre or tone quality: each unique source of a sound produces sounds with distinct tonal properties, called timbre. The mix of various frequencies and their relative amplitudes determine the tonal quality of a sound. Sound plays a significant role in our daily lives, from communication to entertainment. It is an essential component of music, speech, and other forms of auditory art. Understanding the fundamental principles of sound helps us appreciate its importance and richness in our world.
The image features a graphical representation of sound waves. On the left side, there is an array of colorful, abstract shapes resembling sound waves in various shades of purple, blue, and green. These shapes are densely packed together, giving the impression of a complex sound composition. On the right side of the image, there is a simple gray rectangle that appears to be a digital display or interface. This rectangle has horizontal lines and some sort of grid or pattern on it, which may represent data, information, or controls related to audio processing or synthesis. The overall style of the image is modern and abstract, with a clear focus on sound and technology themes. The contrast between the colorful sound wave shapes and the more mundane digital display creates an interesting visual narrative that juxtaposes the artistic representation of sound with the technical aspects of digital audio processing or creation. The image shows a graph with two waves. The upper wave is labeled amplitude, time period, and frequency of a sound wave, indicating that it represents the variation in sound pressure over time. Below this waveform, there is another label stating time period, 0 to 1 second. Overlaying the graph is a text in white font that reads amplitude, time period, and frequency of a sound wave. This suggests that the image is educational or informative, likely explaining how amplitude, time period, and frequency are related to the propagation of sound waves. The graph appears to be a simplified representation of an audio signal's characteristics, which might be relevant in fields like physics, engineering, or audiology.